We're just waiting for a few people to join, and then we start.
Yes, thank you for joining in good time. We will start in a few. In the meantime, feel free to let me know in the chat where you're joining me from and what you expect to learn from the session. So feel free to engage me on chat as we wait to start in a few. All right, we can get started. Just give me a thumbs up if you can hear me. And good evening. Thank you for joining our webinar today. I'm yet to see what you guys are expecting from the session. Just let me know in the chat. Thank you for the thumbs up. You can see a couple of people. We have Amos, we have Momodu, we have Eugene, we have Evie, Cecilia. Just let me know in the chat what you're expecting to learn from today's session. This webinar is powered by Zindua School in partnership with Product Kitchen. If you're coming across Zindua School for the very first time, we are a coding school. We offer variety of courses. Our core programs being software engineering and data science. We have a couple of specialization, but for this specific webinar, it is inspired by one of the short courses that we offer called product management. Our webinar today is named The New Way of Building Products in Africa. I'm sure you already know we are in an AI era. Things are shifting really, really quickly and we need to adapt. So I hope you've come with an adaptive mind to learn and to also ask questions. If you need clarity, to unlearn old ways that need to be changed. I don't want to take much time. We've already waited for a while to get to quorum. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to introduce my speakers for the day. Please be an engaging crowd. I'm yet to see anyone respond except Amos. Amos says, hey, you're joining from Nairobi. I am looking forward to the shared learning XP from Thaya. All right, Thaya kuna mafans huku. Glad to see. So yeah, engage me. Let me know what you're looking to learn, so that the speakers can also deliver what you have come to learn. So I will start it off with Taya. Please introduce yourself and then hand it over to Dominic, and then we can get our conversation started. Hi Taya, I hope you can hear me.
Yes. I was hoping to switch on my video. I don't think, I don't know what's happening. But anyways, I hope you're well. So my name is Tayo Oronja. I have been building products for the last 10 years, since 2015. Started 3, who's counting, 4 maybe startups. Decided to transition into product management. One, because I thought it will be a good conduit to help my former founders to be able to learn from my mistakes, and I can guide them or guide their product into the right direction. And yeah, I think that's my background. Currently, I work at Transion. So we are currently building an ERP solution called Kilimax, and the PM in charge of localization, basically trying to make it palatable for the African market. And that's me, basically, in a nutshell. Looking forward to having this conversation. Literally, in my head, this is a conversation, as much as people will learn here and there. But most of the time, I think it will be a conversation. I hope people will be willing to, just talk it out. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, hi everyone. I think I'll share my screen. Yes, hi everyone. So my name is Dominic. I work at iHub, the senior PM. So we at iHub, we invest in tech companies. We used to be sector agnostic. Now our most focus is creator economy, education, and health. Interesting showcase. My background is in marketing, but ended up moving into tech. So I worked for marketing in 1 year, and then at the time, digital marketing was a big thing, but then now, as social media started rising, as more tech companies started growing, tech started becoming a big thing. So I ended up shifting to that. So before I was a project manager, and then I started realizing slowly when product managers started becoming a thing, that what the work I was doing was actually product management with a bit of project management. So happy to come here. So when we started, or when I started, there was no community of product managers. So I decided, let me look for like-minded people where we can share our experiences together, share opportunities, talk about pitfalls, failures we've had together. And then, yeah, and also now other people still do. Now, another question was, how do I jump into it? So for me, I got there into luck as a project manager, but then the other people who are asking, there's no degree in uni that teaches product management. There's no course that you can do. Before there was none. This be online, but then people want something that's created for them with people that they know, people who look like them. So yeah, interested to have this conversation, and please ask as many questions as possible. Yeah, over to you, Grace.
All right. Elvi is saying he's looking forward to learning what building for Africa looks like and what to look out for. Perfect. The conversation is going to cover exactly that. So we'll go right into it. For those who have not joined, we'll find us kick started. So for the first question, I think we can go in reverse. We can have Dominic answer and then Taya. Um, in your years of working in product, I know you two have worked in product for quite some time. What's the single biggest shift you've seen in what it means to be a PM, especially now that AI is in the room? Yeah, I think we can answer that first bit of question. And then I believe what PMs were learning last year is different from what they're learning this year in regards to the new shift. So maybe you can talk about that, and then after that we can jump into what a modern PM needs to do or what is required of them. I hope the question is clear.
Taya, you want to
For
take
me,
that
it's
first,
you.
or? Oh, it's me. Okay, yeah. So I believe AI has always been there for a while. Maybe even more than 15 years. It's just that it used to go by another name, right? Just the same way climate change used to be called global warming. It's just a different kind of term that has come about. Yeah, so for example, even just before then, we used to have predictions whereby even Kitambo apps, if you'd search something, it'd come with suggestions. You don't used to rank sales data. If you want information, there's a way to query it before chatbots were already a thing. So I believe machines were already there and trying to learn a lot of things and how people behave. Even just remember WhatsApp, I used to go to recently called, frequently called. Those are ways for solutions on your mobile app to learn people and what they do. For PMs now, a lot of things has changed just because I'll talk about mostly in general is that building products used to take a lot of time, right? Did a big team, did capital, but now what's happening is that there's now it's very fast to do things. I remember when I started to do design, I used to use PowerPoint, just because there were no other tools. I actually used to use PowerPoint and Excel. So if you want to create a scheme, I'd use those two because it used to come with icons and figures. And I'm just like, you know what? If we had the set of tools we had now, man, yeah, I've been way farther away. So design for me has always been something, but I always look at design as how something works, not how it looks. So the overall functionality of something for me is what I call design. So now things are becoming faster and easier. But a lot of people now feel like, okay, because everyone, there's a assumption that because AI is here, that it's gonna make people become more. But I always say, no, it's still gonna only improve the specialists. Just because, even just think of yourselves now, AI can generate images, can generate videos. But how many are actually making videos? How many are now content creators? Because you think, oh, shooting content is a lot, but now I can make it using AI. But now that's not the case that's happening, right? So I think things have changed. There's not much to worry. It's to better people around. but I just feel like now the side work where I made for this having to do wireframes fast, sketch things on paper, and then get to a UX person to do the designs, and then talk to the customer and say this is what the prototype. Now you can prototype something in seconds. So I feel like now discovery has become better. It's become easier, and I feel like more people need to advantage. Of course, now some I've heard even from people now that telling me the company, some of the UX people, for example, were laid off. Engineers are being laid off. So I think it's we're in a very introspective time. Although I feel like in Africa we still have a long way to go in terms of AI use, because I know the AI people most use is generative AI, but there's more to AI than that, right? So I think there's a big opportunity for product people to now focus on what was always a big thing, which why product managers are always good for that, is focusing on the customer, focusing on problems that customers are willing to pay for. That's where the skin in the game is, right? So yeah, I'd be happy to chat more on that conversation later as we jump into it.
Yeah, and just to add what Domi has said, fundamentally the different stages of product development, I would say, has been slashed by half. Remember, we used to first, if I can go to point zero, first hypothesize, come up with, I think there's a problem here, validate whether it is true there is a problem, um, ideate around the solution that you would think will fit to fix that problem, start building, right? Or even before you build, just design, just to save time. Remember, the whole discipline of coming up with prototypes on Figma was to cut cost and time, right? Then now once you validate or you modify the prototype based on the feedback that you're getting, now you're building, right? You've given your project or your product to a dev to just, build it out. Then finally you launch, given the feedback again you get from your MVP, and you go to market and etc, etc. So right now, and I think honestly, I'm living my dream. I won't lie. I'm living my dream because I've always had so many ideas and I've always wanted to just churn them out, just know which one will land, which one will not land, and which one will land and stick, right? Validation, quick validation. So what has changed fundamentally is we are no longer designing prototypes that are just images and pixels, right? Right now, we are building POCs, proof of concept, with a database, an integration to M-Pesa. Yesterday, I did an integration to Boonie APIs by KCB, right? So they do SDK push, and also they do IPN, instant payment notification, and so many other APIs. So basically, I was trying to integrate a POS to do SDK push, and also to get back that message back to the POS to verify that the money that was paid by the the use case on supermarkets. All these I did on Lovable, and I mean, things are changing, man. Things are changing. So I'd say it has been cut by half. So right now, and this is the best time, is we focus on the user slash the customer, whatever you want to call them, right? So you're focusing on the person who has this problem, and you have enough time to spend with them just to understand, their lives. I usually like immersing myself in the environment of the customer or the user, right? For example, a while back, I was building a small point of sale system for mobile. And I remember I had to volunteer to be a salesperson at a kiosk just to understand what do they do in a day-to-day basis, right? So this is the perfect time to go into those details, to really understand your customer intimately to that level. So we are no longer designing just pixel. I know it will be a debate whether the UI UXers are relevant. Of course they are. They come up with taste, and also they come up with what do we prioritize on the first screen. Like what is our kitchen counter on the app, right? What is the salt and pepper, right? So yeah, I think what has changed is how now we build. I think this is my hypothesis. I think the future of building looks like creating a lovable account and adding all the team members, right? So we start with a prompt by the PM, the designer comes in, starts just improving the UI, then the developer comes in to clean up the code, still within the same platform. It could be lovable, it could be whatever, doesn't matter. But that is the new way of building, I think. And so, yeah, I think that is what has fundamentally changed. The fact that the stages of just product development have shifted into, have been cut by half. So yeah, back to you, Grace.
All right, I want us to talk about building for Africa and the realities that comes with building for Africa or building in the African context. Yeah. Um, is there a difference for the approach for how people build in Africa and how people build in other continents or in other yeah, say in other continents? Is there a difference? Is should PMs think of building differently if if you're talking about PMs who are building for the global aspect, and now they've come to the African aspect? Is there a difference? I hope that makes sense.
Yes, I'd definitely say there's a difference, a very big one. So, when you look at Western markets, a lot of things have been formalized, there's rules, there's infrastructure to support things, people have been operating in a certain way. But when you look at Africa as well, we thrive in informal markets. So, for example, people loan each other money. You can go to Mama Mboga and tell her, I'll pay you tomorrow. There's nothing like credit limit. I ask me, okay, what's your salary? How much can you afford? How much can you know? Most of our relationships are built by trust and social contracts. So I feel like that's one of the key big differences that we have. And most people assume that now we can impose those Western ideas because also for us, for Africans in general, most tech we experience or most solutions that we experience come from Western markets. Our emails, our phones, our clothes, our cars, basically 99% of our lives is technology brought from outside. So we always assume that, we can easily replicate that here, not understanding the nuances. So I believe that's usually one of the key differences that people have. They don't look at, they assume Kenyans are, when people say on Twitter, everyone makes over 100K, usually on ground, that's not the same, right? So we don't understand our purchasing power, how much people make, how much people earn, how much people are willing to spend as well. So you find that things like, our devices, things are very costly in Africa when you think about it. For example, we pay almost 40% more in just mobile money transfers compared to Western markets. So I believe there's some of things people make those mistakes. And also one big thing is we believe that technology is the answer to every problem. So sometimes I hear ideas and then I'm like, oh, I have an app for this. And I'm just like, I'm already using an app, which is probably Excel. People don't look at tools like Excel as apps. Those are literally apps. They run banks, they run what. So you're always trying to compete with solutions that are already there. So, but you're looking at them as if it's backward. Now Excel has AI. So your data tool now doesn't really help because you can easily query even on the most, just these things have existed for years that people are seeing them as slow. I believe those are some of the differences that are here between building abroad and building here.
Yeah, just to add, I think the cultural nuances are really key when you're thinking of building in Africa. Remember, we are very big word alert, collectivistic. What that means is we organize ourselves in groups. Is it family? Is it what friends? I mean, these are not different from the Western. I mean, from what the US or the UK does, but here it's not just an activity; it's identity, right? And this we can see by how our politics is architectured, right? I mean, people say our politics is tribal, and yes, it actually is. And we can always have that debate of evolution. People trust who speaks the same language as them. People trust people who look like them, etc., etc. We can always have those debates, but for us, we draw in groups. For example, I like one platform called One Kitty. So what they decided to do is automate contributions on M-Pesa, contribution for weddings, burials, and these chamas or whatever, right? And they didn't build an app first. What they did was build like a pay bill where if you pay, right, that message of confirming that you've paid comes back to the WhatsApp group. So there was no app. It was just, again, learning how people are actually doing and automating some of these things. So yeah, I mean, building around those behaviors as Africans is where I think the key is, right? So yeah, I think that's my take on how Africa is different, and culture is one of the biggest denominator.
All right, let's go right into mindset. Um, before a PM builds anything, I believe they need to understand the systems that are there in the building space. Why is system thinking such a critical foundation for product managers today? How can they position themselves in a position where they can see the full picture from stakeholders to constraints before they even start building?
Um,
Um. Okay. Can go.
yeah, so I remember, I think it's good that I give you context. So a while back, around 2018, I decided to build a fintech platform, and I was ignorant about the CBK regulations, right? So in Kenya, for you to build any fintech, the minimum capital requirement is 5 million Kenya shillings. Just to give you context, again, 5 million Kenya shillings means this is money that needs to be in your bank account for the company as insurance, just in case anything happens to your platform. This is for reimbursement. Doesn't mean this is the total value of shares contributed to the to the company. It just means this is money that needs to be there. Um, Anytime CBK comes to check your accounts, they need to see not less than 5M. So I had already saved up some money, hired a team, and went out to build the particular platform, only to find out that I cannot launch, right? So you can imagine an year's worth of savings. Actually, was saving half of my salary just for this product, right? So system thinking means, can you see the whole as opposed to, can you see the forest before you see the trees, right? I had ignored that there's a big picture towards building a product, right? I had to integrate with banks that required me to be licensed. I had to get licensed first. I think that was the first most important, or work with partners who are either banks microfinances who are licensed, which I never had any connection or whatever. And banks, I don't think they were really, until recently, they never, I mean, they didn't care, right? So I was too, let me say, naive, and I just thought of building without seeing the bigger picture of how the players in the market work, right? So systems thinking forces you to see the whole as you narrow down into the details. This could be maybe you're trying to solve one problem in one market, right? But you discover that that problem is attached to another problem that has another problem attached to it. So for you to solve problem A, you have to go, well, let's call this problem C. You have to go to B and A first, right? Or if you're not solving A and B, you have to look for companies that have already solved or are trying to solve problem A, B, so that now you can exist and be relevant in the market. So that is basically what systems thinking as a framework helps us work with, or just have that model, mental model on how to build in an ecosystem. Yeah.
Maybe just to add on to that, I think, oh, just Chris, just go ahead. Sorry.
It's okay. You can go ahead. Sorry for cutting you short.
Oh yeah, so for me, system thinking is just about figuring out, how are people doing things now, before you come solve. Understand, okay, how do they solve this problem? Understand, what it takes. Is it a difficult process? Is it something they're okay living with? Because sometimes we think that, okay, maybe it's a big problem, but to them, maybe if it's reconciliation and they only do it once a month, that means it's not such a big problem, right? And it takes them 3 hours. So they're like, I know what, I can dedicate time for this. But if something that's occurring frequently, is when you need to understand, okay, then systems here might need to change, right? But other than that, if it's something that they're okay with, it's something that they already do, it's easy, then, they don't need to change how their system works. Yes.
All right, thank you for that. I want to talk about culture. I see a lot of emphasis around cultural intelligence for PMs. Could you just shed light on why is it important for people to understand the culture before they build or even work on anything?
Okay, so again, I think I'll repeat on what I had given as an example of how one kitty does it. I think someone is unmuted. Anyway, I think they really captured. I mean, forget the tech, right? Understanding of how people do things and seeing where you can bring value with technology, right? Is it such a big deal? Is it such a big deal on how we, as Africans, let me just put it as Africans, right? Is it such a big deal that now you can automate it? So that is one way of understanding culture. There's a YouTube video I really enjoy by one of my internet mentors. I don't know whether that makes sense, where he does like a case study of how many failed projects in Africa. So one example is a company that came to, or an NGO that came to help people, I think in Uganda or West Africa, dig boreholes as well as put like pumps. And for them, they were like, children usually, when they go to fetch water, they usually play around here, right? So why can't we just make this pump in a way that we can make a merry-go-round, and once children are playing, the water can be being pumped into the jerry cans and the containers. That was a very good attempt of infusing culture or behavior into maybe a laborious activity. But now what they forgot is it is not only children that come to fetch water. Sometimes it is old women or women of maybe adults. And the only way for them to fetch now this water is to do the merry-go-round themselves. Now you see, you're forcing, and you know how Africans, adults, we don't like shameful acts, like looking like children, right? So they forgot that nuance that as much as you want to make it fun to fetch water, you are forgetting that it is not only children will be fetching water. So I think, you see, only an African would, well, only someone who has lived with Africans or an African would understand such nuances, right? So it is very important to immerse yourself as a PM into the world of your users, right? So that you understand those small nuances, aka cultural intelligence. So I think that is why it is very, very important. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe just to add on to that, just in simply short, is when you look at culture, what mostly talk about is consumer behavior. How does your target audience behave? If you just use a common example here in Kenya, M-Pesa, it was bound up by something that happens. Kenyans have a lot of Africans in general have a lot of black tax, so people needed to send money home. And how they were doing it before was through, sending credits, and then when these guys go to the shop, they're able to change this credit at a fee. So if I send 1,000, I'm able to redeem 900 and the shopkeeper keeps 100. So you see, this was something that were already mirroring the culture. So and there was a big need of people to send money home. So that's why we're saying you have to look at how, when you talk about culture, mostly it's around consumer behavior. How do they behave? At what times do they need? So it's something very important to look at. And I believe sometimes foreigners can see it. It doesn't mean that, if you have to be an African or a Zungu to learn how to do things in either markets. It's just that you have to be engrossed in what people do on a day to day. So even like Michael just said, Kenyans have peculiar behavior just because, the things that they notice, even like Google Maps, they started realizing, I usually on Fridays or weekends, man, Google Maps is very active. These people, what they do is that they'll check on Google Maps, put it to their home where they go every day. And then after that, they switch it off. So they see it's all blue, and then they go. So when they're doing research, they discover people are actually looking for where alcohol blue is. So those are the kind of things that are saying culture. You look at how users behave, why they behave this way, and then try to build around that. Yeah.
All right, guys, feel free to put in your questions on chat in case you have any questions coming up. Just feel free to put them on chat. I wanted to talk about AI. I know it is one of the headlines on our topic for the day. How important is it for a PM to incorporate AI tools, and what are these AI tools does a modern PM need to use, and in what aspects, in what exact aspects are these AI tools being used in?
I'd say just in your day-to-day life. I think also PMs are different. Not all PMs build software tools. Others build hardware. Others build consumer goods. I think mostly in general, a product is a product. It could be a service. It could be a stuff. So I'd say mostly for research. Maybe you want to, for example, want to understand how companies are operating in the world, and you want to do research around it. So tools like Perplexity give, although for those ones, unfortunately, they mostly have data in Western markets, so those won't work here. Here, probably you may just have to go and talk to people who are experienced in the industry. I think that's very real. So maybe what you can use is to use AI to probably generate questions that would give you good feedback from these guys. Not leading questions, not questions that sound directly as if there's a certain answer you want. And of course, design now, you can easily generate user flows, as we said, design tools, prototypes. So that also is very, very fast. You can generate emails, even PRDs now. A lot of things can be automated. Emails, someone sends a request, customer feedback, all these things you can easily use AI to help you solve for them. So I think most of the work that was before, especially for PMs, that was a lot of, I like to call them office or desk work. Those are the ones that AI sorted for. So now as a PM, what you can focus mostly is, dealing with customers, understanding pain points, problems. So it helps even to be in the field more, where you're just sitting with them and understanding their problems.
I agree. And whatever he said, that one.
All right. As we continue the conversation, allow me to just throw this in the conversation. We have a program, um, a short course called Product Management that goes for a span of 10 weeks. If you're looking to upskill into product management, you can see the two guys, Taya and Dominic, sharing wealth of experience into this conversation. I know you're noting down the gems and all of that. So I'm going to also drop the link on the chat. So in case you're interested, I'm going to put the link on the chat. Even as we continue the conversation, if you have a question regarding the program or anything in regards to product management, you need clarity onto something, just feel free, don't shy off. We are here to give you clarity on the same. So even as we continue the conversation, I'm gonna put the link on chat. Feel free to check it out. I'm going to talk about it in depth. We are almost winding up the conversation. I will go in depth into it. For now, let me put the link right there and ask me any questions in regards to it or in regards to the conversation as we continue. Now, there's a new, not a new thing, but it's a very important um, thing that we are introducing in our program, and this is vibe coding. I'd love for Taya and Dominic to shed light on this. If someone is coming across vibe coding for the first time, what is it and what do PMs use it for? And what is the advantage for them to vibe code?
As a professional vibe coder, I would say um, what you're trying to do is just churn out the idea, right, or the product, experiment as early as possible with the least amount of money used or spent as possible, get feedback as early as possible, and iterate so that when you're building a proper, let me just say a proper scalable product or backend for the product, you have already made the mistakes, you have changed the UI here and there, you have understood what features to prioritize on the homepage, or depending on the interaction with the device, right? I forgot the name. Ergonomics. Yes, that is the word. So ergonomics is basically how people interact with physical devices, etc., or any other chairs, seats, etc. You've figured out how someone, if they are left-handed, what can they access easily with the thumb or you get the point, right? So you've made all those mistakes, you've just experimented to the core. Now you're able to take a very validated, tested feedback, whatever, to the devs. Now they are able to build something that is actually needed in the market, right? So I'd say vibe coding helps you just to do things faster, as opposed to the traditional way of, again, the diamond of human-centered design or design thinking. So yeah, I think that is why vibe coding at this point, at this time, is quite important as a PM. So you're able to just validate faster.
Yeah, and also when you think about if you're someone who's very new to PM and you need to show experience, I think what especially with AI made it level the field of where instead of me taking so much time to learn a new skill, it's very easy then to use this to talk with this computer. It's a vibe, you're just typing in, something comes up. So, it was very easy, it's fun, not too complex. Things are coming to life as you're watching. So I think it's one of the key things that has happened now. Of course, it's still in its very early stages, but it's actually getting way better and better every day. So just think of even just like cars. Before, you had to know how to drive a manual car. It was a process, gear one on the hill, man. If it's on the hill, you're already scared. So it was very complex, but now, cars now have automatic gears, so you don't have to worry about learning how to change gear one, gear two, you have, all those things. So basically, it's the same with vibe coding as well. So there's two levels, right? There's basically no code tools where you don't really code at all. And then you have low code, no code, where it's now coming about where you just prompt it and it generates for you. For both of these things, I think you still need to be a bit technological averse because, building technology was never just about building something. There was always things we call infrastructure, right? What is the backbone? Even when we think of a building, it needs to have a structural engineer who put the building in place so that in case there's a storm, in case it rains, the building or there's a big wave or I don't know what, the building doesn't crumble or fall down, right? So these same principles still apply in vibe coding as well because that's why you're finding like that app that was called the T app, it was vibe coded, but they were hacked and people's data was released online, right? So you find that with these things you still need to have still think about security, still think about the legal processes, think of how even to scale infrastructure so that nothing is breaking within. So I think the still concepts apply. And yeah, I think even for anyone who's building here, as I'm saying, to validate things, because I feel like what used to happen before and why startups were failing is that you build this idea, you go to market, it's refused, you have to shut down investor resources. But at least now you're able to validate earlier. Does it mean that now it's right? No, companies will still shut down because essentially what people need to focus on is learning how to build a business, right? Something that can sustain, pay people, and grow. Yeah.
All right, I want us to talk about one more thing before we go back to talking about this product management program and what it is about. Um, and the thing left is feedback loop. How important is feedback loop in in the product life cycle? How important is the feedback loop, and what importance does it hold in the building cycle?
I think there's nothing as bad as building in isolation, right? What that means is, let's say you're building whatever app, whatever website platform you're building, right? You've built it with the assumption that this is exactly what the people that I'm building for would like, only to find out when you launch that, you know what, you are very far off from the target. The target is exactly what they want, right? Of course, it will never be perfect. You'll never satisfy 100% um, of their requirements or their wants, right? But building in isolation makes you build something that no one cares about, right? Unless, and this is very exceptional, you're building for yourself. And what percentage of yourselves are there in the market, right? Very small, I think. So validation and feedback loop is basically getting feedback from the people that you're building for. You give them the app, they test it out, they give feedback, they start asking, and feedback does not mean no, I want feature X, not Y. No, no, no. They tell you, uh, where can I do X? Where can I do Y? Where can I, you know, um, if I was able to see X, if I was able to see Y, this app will be really helpful, right? So even the way they are giving you feedback is not as straightforward as you would like to you would wish for. But again, you're dealing with humans. You're not dealing with robots that are very straightforward because they are logical, right? You're dealing with humans who communicate, especially in Africa, communicate non-verbally as opposed to verbally, right? Um, we usually say in collectivistic societies like Africa, I know a yes sometimes is a no. And come tomorrow means you. I mean, we all know how we go to Gikomba or any other place. You ask for the price, then they're like, wow, okay. So acha nikuje kesho, you know. Basically, you are saying, come on, you're too expensive, right? So that is feedback also. That is actually feedback, right? So again, if you understand the nuance, you understand what this means, I'll come back tomorrow, then you understand that is actually feedback. So yeah.
To add on the human kind of thing is that sometimes when you're building other things will end up coming into place that you had never thought about. Because also your customers are people you want to build a relationship with. They want to feel like they are part and parcel of making this company big. I think that's why when we used to hear M-Pesa, for some time we used to celebrate M-Pesa because they used to incorporate feedback. We're so proud of it. So you want customers to feel like they're also part of this conversation. They've been part of building this successful company. So I'd give example, when sending money was done, it was good, but then there used to be a lot of human errors, right? So people are sending money, I put in the wrong number, it goes, I can't reverse, right? So then now, many complaints start coming. Then, Safaricom is thinking, okay, then what do we do? That's why they included Hakikisha, whereby the name pops up and you're able to verify that, okay, this is the person actually went sent to, because, human beings make so many errors. If I miss just one digit, then I sent to the wrong person. That's also they introduced reverse. Okay, now I'm able to reverse money if I sent to the wrong person. But now when they started reversing, now people started using it. I sent money to you, then I want to reverse it because I didn't want to pay someone. So human and consumer behavior plays a big part as to why you always need feedback, because there are things you never think of, a lot of fraud, a lot of people with ill intentions. Sometimes when the user does something that was not intended, but your system allows it just because you hadn't thought about it. So feedback loops are always good to always improve your product. I think also one thing people don't like to hear is the painful truth. So when people tell you your product won't work, usikach, usianze kufeel feeling, useme wasiaelewa idea yangu. It's just a way to also be accept the truth, right? And always accept criticism, positive or negative, but of course mostly focus on the positive criticism that help you grow, as opposed to someone who's just bashing you for no reason. Maybe we can allow
So,
Amos, you can just unmute yourself. Oh yeah, Amos, you can just unmute yourself and ask your question.
yeah.
Hi, Dominic, hey, Thaya, and everyone else. Yeah, so I'll just go right into it. So I just remember there was something on the PM WhatsApp group the other day, related to how we are in what you'd call high trust societies, and I'm just wondering, what your advice would be, especially that now we're in the age of automation and AI. What advice would you have for product people who are building in such societies? Have you ever been in such a situation that you had to contend with a high trust product or business case that you're building for?
I think I'd say it depends on, okay, let's define this trust, right? So where does it exist, right? It exists in tribal lines. And please forgive me for using the word tribe. I don't mean like tribe. I just mean a collective of people who have a commonality. It could be a religion, it could be a language, it could be they come from the same estate, the same way you guys you have buddies who you went with to high school together, and you've been networking and sharing. Niko na boy wa fulani, I mean, you used to study with him in high school and he sells shoes, so you refer them, right? So that trust network, right, you can build around that. And I think that will be, again, the advice that I would give. Trust around the trust network, build around the trust network, right? So for example, and I'm not saying this could be a big product or not. Please remember, if you've lived in Nairobi for more than 10 years, there was a point, or if you grow up in Nairobi, there was a point where You will go to your local shop that you usually buy and tell the shopkeeper, dad or mom has just said or has requested that you give me milk and bread, and he will come to clear, right? And your shopkeeper had a book where he would write, Mama Domi has a debt of 200, date, and which products, milk and bread, right? So when now the Mama Domi goes to clear, there is a book for reference. Mtoto wako alichukua this date, I remember it was Domi, not the brother, it was Domi. Na alikuwa amevaa red ama pink, and this is what exactly he took, right? So it means there's a trust between the shopkeeper and your parent for them to even go ahead and um, loan the product, right? Again, there was no credit score, as Domi was saying, there was no credit score at all. It was just maybe we come from the same community, or we have been living in this estate and I understand your situation to the point where I am able to lend you some food so that you can clear at the end of the month, right? So build around those trust networks. So just investigate these trust networks and build around them. Yes, just to clarify, in Africa, we have a high trust specifically to communities or tribes. Again, tribe, I don't mean the language, I just mean people who are in a collective, but low trust on people they do not know. And that's why we have been having issues with elections where people don't want to vote for people that come from a different region because they don't know their values. They might know some cultures here and there, and they are very much opposed because that culture for them is weird, and this leader represents that culture, right? It is more to it than just politician using tribalism for that. So yeah, I think that will be my advice. I see there's a follow-up.
Yeah, almost. I believe if you are even in collectives, right? As he's mentioning, voting for leaders. In Kenya, if you leave your 1,000 bob note or you leave your phone somewhere, even if you leave it in shags in somewhere, do you think you'll find that phone there? There's something in Kenya what we call janja culture. Everyone is always trying to kukulia mtu, kukulia what. So you find that in Kenya, in Africa, we have low. That's why our level of corruption are so high. So in general, we have low trust society. We trust very few. That's why when you're talking about referrals, it's like I'm referring someone that I trust already. So that just any referral, it has to be someone that I feel like I trust because even when I see this marketing advertising there, I'm seeing it on Instagram. If I don't know anyone who's bought there, I just need to refer to you that have you bought there? Is he gonna call me? Until he says yes, it's when you buy. If you're in a high trust society, that means and that's why we're seeing you always need connections to get jobs. In other markets, it's more meritocracy. So that's what I'm saying. In general, we have a low trust society, and that's what I'm saying. That's why we needed to have things like reversals needing approvals, because mtu angetumia pesa a reverse imefika ukicheck ukislack na nini. So basically, we're in a literally a low trust society. Trust is built through social contracts, but it's still very like what uoshadi wazazi wao. That's something common. So we're literally in a low trust society. That's why you need to have pins, hakikishas. So if I have to tell you, mtu akikupigia na hii number, we have those guys from prison who call you to scam you. So scammers are everywhere, basically. So that's what I'm saying. We're in a low trust society, and that's why you have some things that are fast. That's why even we don't have subscriptions because someone doesn't trust that I'll pay I pay every month and I know I'll get my service. And that's why even people don't trust doctors. Liquor is fake. Sugar has mercury. So we have very bigger problems in society. And that's what I'm saying in a low trust society. So when you have to bill for products here, you have to ensure that security is paramount because one complaint online, people will cancel your product, right? Because people are very hard to bash, especially if they feel like they trusted you and you failed me. Otherwise, in other societies, someone will just raise a complaint and they know they'll be sorted and they will have to go online. But in Kenya, ukichezewanga, first thing inakwanga kwenda online na kusema, oh, huyu alinikon, huyu alinini. So that's what I'm saying. That's how you need to figure out when you're building in Africa. And that's why sometimes you can't automate everything just because you need consent. So even remember like the product called Ratiba and stuff, it didn't work because people don't want to pay subscription. People want to automate payments because they're like, I you might automate a payment that I didn't consent to. I don't know if you'll offer me this service, so I'll only pay when I receive my good. So even Jumia tried to have people paying upfront. They realized people would never pay upfront until the good reaches my house, just because we are a low trust society. And that's the reality on the ground.
Yeah, just to clarify what I know now, Amos might be confused because I said, or the post that I shared said Africa is a high trust. It means high trust on people that you already trust, right? But low trust on people that you do not know anything about, or they do not belong to your tribe. So again, for strangers who are selling on Gigi, I mean, bro, I can't send money before. Me, I don't know you. You'll scam me, right? But if I know Domi, me, I'll send Domi even before he delivers an item because I know him and we've been building a relationship with him, right? So I'll trust Domi more, like to a family level trust, because I know him, than my trust will be higher, and my trust will be now. It's like there's extremes. There's no in between. It's either I trust you so high, so much, or either I do not. Me, I don't know you. Me, I don't trust you until I see it and I inspect it and make sure that that cloth fits in a shimo so that I can pay. So that is what I meant. To those that you trust, there's high propensity as opposed to the West. And to those that you do not trust, there is absolutely no trust whatsoever. So there's all those nuances around that trust whole thing. Yeah.
Right. So, Taya Dominic, thanks for that. And if you'll allow me, if I can do a follow-up question, I know we probably just over time. Can I ask like a follow-up question? Awesome. Okay, so I get that. I get the whole high trust, low trust context and the psychology behind it, but I have a very particular angle with this question. So imagine a situation where it's an e-commerce context. You know how SMEs work, and you've actually, let's use that example with a grocery shop, mama mboga, whatever. So yes, you trust this user because, or rather that particular seller because you know them, they're from your neighborhood, they've sold to you before, ticks all the green boxes. But it isn't scalable, right? So if you want to scale your business, you want to deal with a lot of customer, that's selling for that person in e-commerce, you throttle yourself at some point, right? So you can't scale with that context. So this is where now you're thinking about productizing the consultative selling, right? So how do you manage the low trust aspect that will be a problem for you to automate or integrate some form of artificial intelligence into that consultative selling? How would you approach it, or how would you solve for that?
Do you want to go first? Anyway, I'll go. This will sound, I don't know. You don't. And maybe I haven't come up with a solution for that. But my first maybe thought is you don't. And a good example is Gigi, right? OLX. What OLX discovered is, look, these guys don't trust each other. They partially trust the platform. So how will we will make money is selling ads. So for you to post on our platform, for the first three, I think, months, it is free, right? And your posting or listing will be seen, right? Now, once you pass the 3 months threshold, now only those who have boosted their listing or post will get the first page, same way as Google works. Their product will be listed on the first pages once someone searches on a certain category. Now, for Gigi, that's how they productize that. I know, does it solve the issue? Not really, but they're in business. And I remember talking to a seller or a vendor or a merchant. I think they were spending almost like 50K per month in boosting, between 20 to 50K boosting, right? And these guys were selling consumer electronics, smartphones, earphones, earbuds, etc. So that is how OLX or Gigi as a product makes money. It doesn't solve the problem. I think they just found a creative way around it. I know, man. It's, as a PM, there's a satisfaction that you feel like you haven't gotten when you haven't solved the entire, rail of the transaction, right? But that's there's some human behaviors that I think even with good technology, it will be quite tough to automate around. That's what I think, at least now. Until I see another, yes, and that's why even Jumia, when they started, it was shipped from someone's shop to the buyer, until they realized, you know what, we are getting a lot of false sales, right? So what happened is, now for you to sell on Jumia, you have to, for the I think or expensive products, or huge markup or whatever, they have to get your item in their warehouses so that they can ship. I don't know whether they still do that. I don't know whether they changed, but that's how I remember they started solving for that. So yeah, I think some human behaviors, honestly, they are tough to build around. Yeah.
I'd say for any businessman, you need to have when you call those customer representatives, sales representatives, those are the guys who would still need to you still need to have a human in the loop. I don't think you can automate. So when there are customer complaints, you need to have people reaching out. If it's social media, you can't let posts on your page go unanswered. When there are complaints, especially, because then people will feel hard and people can feel they can trust you. If you're responding to these queries or these complaints, that will help. Call people, assure them of what. Even in restaurants, sometimes when your food is bad and you complain, they'll even tell you, even if you're the one on the wrong, they'll just tell you, okay, this food is free, we won't pay the bill. It's our just to complain that, because people want to feel they're respected, their hard-earned money is also being respected as well. So some things you have to start slowly, especially in our context, because as I'm saying, automation tech is not usually the problem. Honestly, if you don't have enough doctors, you can't tell me automation will help me cure people. If there's no food, has already is bad, we're not growing food well, food is being wasted. So we have to think about things. In Africa, we haven't covered our basic foundation. So things like automation, I always say that it's too high for people like us here. Even just, I think we figure out the basics, and not everything also needs to be automated, honestly. And I say, most techies always assume that everything needs a tech. Like, oh, I have a thing. Oh, why don't I tech it? I remember even I had a call. Someone was telling me he was looking for a solution for rent management. And I told him, okay, how do you do it currently? He's looking for a solution. I even asked him, okay, how do you do it? He just said, what he does is just check that when people send their money, they send with a message, and he checks, he verifies. So I was like, okay, why is that a problem? And the LMS will charge you 5K. So I'm like, would you pay 5K just for a month and you only use the solution once a month? It doesn't really make sense. Even when you look at, when I talk about customer in the loop, is also that He mentioned about the Mama Bogas, that's why Safaricom used them as agents. Your local kiosk guy already had a trust relationship and he sees people physically, you know where he lives. So you know that if I withdraw money from this guy, if he gives me fake cash, I'll go to him and not to Safaricom. So you have a human in the loop. So you can't automate everything. And I see when people are now complaining about companies like Safaricom, when you call, no one answers. If you do, you're speaking to an AI bot. People don't want that. I want to speak to a human because then the AI bot will be programmed. If it cuts, it won't feel your frustration. It won't understand your problem. If I want to speak Sheng, it might not understand. It might not have that empathy. So that's what I'd say. Barbara, you can just open your mic and ask your question.
So my question is based on feedback, um, asking from a point of view of a PM working on a B2B SaaS product. So given that you're working with many businesses, SMEs to be specific, in the African market, and they have so many issues, probably you're going in the market with one product and you're trying to get feedback from them on how to improve, right? So you're getting so many feedback from the different businesses that you're working with. How do you prioritize the feedback, number one? Number two, most of the feedback that is coming from these businesses suit that specific business. Doesn't mean it will cut across to other businesses that are using your product too. So how do you build to ensure that all your merchants, that is the businesses, feel heard in terms of their feedback and ensure that your product is not being diluted by too much feedback and forgo the initial value?
My initial thoughts is, did you niche down? Why I ask that is, let's say your your product is to be used by someone selling fish, aka fish category food, right? Someone else selling clothes, right? And someone else selling electronics, right? These all these guys are selling something, so they're in the trading industry. But now the issue is, one needs to calculate how many days their fish be will be fresh, right? Before it expires, right? So the customization that you will need to do for that particular merchant is totally different from someone selling electronics. Electronics don't expire, right? Well, I mean, of course, you cannot sell a phone for 20 years, right? But you get the concept. Or even cement, let me say, then you have a hardware within your platform, right? So if you're trying to build for all these people at the same time, it will be too much. It will be really too much because these people have very divergent priorities and requirements within their business. So I'd recommend that you niche down, and niche down plus find adjacent industries. So for example, you're selling to whatever product that you're building, start with people selling electronics, then move to electricals, the bulbs, the home consumer products, right? The lights, the wires, and etc. Because these industries are pretty much adjacent to each other. Once you finish and you solve, and I mean, you have done the, and I mean bare minimum in a good way. And nowadays, people don't want to hear the bare minimum. Once you have built a good enough product, or a good enough, yes, product, right? Then now you can decide to go to other industries, right? Where the customization now is pretty much different. And now, again, you have helped one industry or you have locked one industry. Now you're trying now to lock another one. But when you're doing all these industries at the same time, honestly, you will get confused and you won't know whether you are building or like you're building a Mercedes, a Volkswagen, a Probox, or whatever. Yeah. So niche down.
Yeah. So, but basically, what you're saying is have your ICP, customer profile, where you're like, oh, this is the kind of customer first we want to serve. People have always asked, Safaricom works with 3 million businesses who use their tills, pay bills, but they've never had a point of sale system. It's just because they understood customizing for 3 million businesses would be too much. But all of them will need to be paid for payment. So I would rather focus on that and do it so well. Let everyone else scramble for the rest. And you're seeing why, look for that problem that is common against many people. That's why we do market sizing. See a problem being faced by many people and solve for that. You can't solve every people's problems. Also learn to say no. Of course, you have to say no in a good way. At least show them, okay, for now, this is what we can do. Maybe you can have a workaround. It doesn't have to be tech wise. It could just be, okay, this is a problem I'm having. What about if you do the XYZ? It doesn't have to mean that you build it for him, because then everyone will request for something. And even some of the things they'll ask for will be button change, add these things, and they're not willing to pay more for that, right? So only integrate things that you feel like you can make money for. So that's why you find that now you have like buy goods, or like I can buy goods. Then you have pay bills where they're like, you know what, I don't want to be charged by Safaricom. Maybe pass on that bill to the customer. Maybe I don't want to receive money in M-Pesa. I want it to go to my bank. So you see, it's things that are very common and general to anyone, and then they can do their own reconciliations and stuff. Sometimes also some solutions you find that could be counterintuitive to a product. So for example, Safaricom doesn't like having those things where you can tell how much you're spending on transactions, because then you figure out they're making too much money from you. So not all ideas also can be good for you to integrate, because then they'll be detrimental to you as a company. You try as much to avoid them as well. So I know sometimes it's always split, and also you don't want to turn your company into a feature factory where you're always getting requests from people, do this, do that, and then even when you check data on how the usage don't even end up to that feature that they mentioned. So you have to first see, okay, how big of a problem is this? How is it affecting you? Is it a big thing that is that, or is just frustrating one user? If it's that, then it's probably an internal problem that's more than you can chew or more that you can gamble for. So you have to know what battles to pick. You have to at least ensure, is the core thing that I sold my solution for. As long as that's working, everything else, if it's very unique to one customer, you might just have to politely say no. Because also it's almost like asking a kibanda, why don't you have pizza? You know, and I know everyone wants pizza, but for them, that's not their business. We're only here to sell this kind of items, and even if everyone comes and says they want pizza, they probably will not sell it. So yeah. Grace, as we wrap up.
Right. I hope all your questions have been answered, guys. Now I want us to um go back into the program, the product management program. I will paste the link again in case you missed it. So as I mentioned, we have a short course going for 10 weeks. That is the product management course by Zindua School in partnership with Product Kitchen. The two guys on call, Taya and Dominic, will be the technical mentors going to handle that session. You've gotten a snippet of what they have to offer. So I'll give them a chance to let us know who's the ideal person to take this program and what are we expecting to get or to learn from this program.
Yeah, maybe let me chime in. We have someone, a former student called Eugene. So I'd hope Eugene would just unmute himself, talk about his experience, why he joined why he joined the cohorts, what he learned from it, and how has he benefited ever since. So he graduated last year, and we just want to see how he utilized it. Eugene, if you can just unmute yourself and share your experience, that would be great.
Hi everyone, good evening. Hey, it's so good to see you myself. Is it the camera or I have like a baby face? Anyway, I'm excited to share my experience with the product management course. Eugene Bahati is my name. I am a proud alumnus of Zindua School. Done multiple courses with them. Most recently, product management, 10 weeks of high intensity and fun learning, relearning, and unlearning. It was exceptionally well structured and tailored to my needs from the background of non-tech individual. The closest to tech I come in is my role as a social media marketer, which formed the end of course project that I did, and I'll talk about that in just a moment. Structured means it was a blend of theory and practical insights. Theory, I mean the theoretical breakdown, which is already communicated, as you can see when you just click on that. All the units are broken down, then it's not all theory. What I liked is that in addition to the theory, we also had weekly mentorship sessions. What does that mean? Every week we had an individual who is practicing product management actively in the industry from different sectors, finance, anything you can think of. So blending that, and it was more of Q&A, not lecture kind. Anything that you did not understand in the class, you can ask during the class and during the mentorship session. Then we used to have real world case studies, practically applicable things you can just relate. For example, the example Thaya gave about some European investors who wanted to build, European NGO wanted to build wells in Africa, and they thought of, there are children who can use this as a merry-go-round, real-world applications. And then another thing I enjoyed from that is that the technical mentors were always on the ready to help us. They've taught something, but it didn't seem went very well for you. They were always available during the course, and they were at our disposal even afterwards. Just hit them a call, drop an email. Their WhatsApp was always open. And then thanks to this course, I gained actionable skills in product strategy, user research, road mapping. This is not just template ninis that I can give in my testimony. First off, let me just backtrack a bit. As we were last year at around this time, we had such a session whereby Grace told us about the product management. In fact, this was the inaugural cohort. And you didn't, first off, the fee was very, very affordable. The aim of Zindua School, I noticed, is not just to rip you off money. It is for you to learn as much tech as you can at a very affordable cost, And get this, I didn't have to pay full on. I was allowed to pay in installments, 2 installments, half pay in advance, secure a slot, and then as you're progressing, pay the rest. I got the impression of this is student-centered, not company-centered. Then we had the chance to learn, besides the theory. I was told that by the technical mentors, I think that was Thaya or Dominic. Actually, during the course, at the end of it, you'll be able to build a website. And I was like, job. Because I'm from an non-tech background, and looking at tech, I used to see these tech guys typing those red and yellow letters and numbers, and they're very intimidating, those things. I hope I'm on. Yes. They were very intimidating, but then we were introduced to a platform called Lovable. This concept of vibe coding, that you can just script something, the way you can type on ChatGPT, but tailor it to whatever product you're creating, and it needs to be solving a problem that stresses from the entire coursework. Then you just prompt it, and then you get an EV, and then we managed to build up a product that is a website. For my case, I'm coming to the end of course project. I built a website using Lovable for my workplace, K's Wellness Center, which is a registered health facility that is catering to the needs of our patients suffering from chronic diseases, but not just any patients. We've niched down to patients from low-income households suffering from chronic diseases. So managing the chronic diseases. And how I come in as a product manager is to create a solution that will enable better manage these patients. How is this a problem? Because management of these patients is fragmented records and there's no clear documentation, so that they hop from one hospital to another, and we're aware of how government works. Now, the private solution is, and how I came in, is create a website, and using like a dashboard, all the information can be needed at from one go. And we acknowledge that not all patients have access to internet. These are low income. So toll-free lines, call when you can, just to shed a bit, because I'm not allowed to shed so much online. And it is not just theory. We were supposed to verify that we've actually learned, pitch in front of actual product managers, industry professionals, products, and I did that. It's also tested my self-confidence and public speaking skills. I'm happy to report that I graduated with a distinction from that. That experience got me even more interested in product management. I've since managed to advance my education through a mentorship currently by Product MBO. Now, that experience that I talked about pitching, I did it as a requirement for Product MBO. I'd like you to just briefly watch my submission, and here we Here we are. Just a moment. I hope you can see my screen. My screen can be seen?
Yes, go ahead.
You can see Eugene Bahati on your screen, my baby face.
Play the video. Yes.
All right, here we go. Greeting. I am Eugene Bahati, a digital product and social media marketer based in Kenya, with a background in public management and product-led digital marketing. I currently work at the intersection of healthcare, technology, and user experience, where I help turn real-world problems into usable digital solutions. Now, the Afrocentric product thinking of building products to solve local problems at scale is what really motivates me to seek mentorship from Product NPO. And I'm confident that this will help sharpen how I translate user insights into practical product decisions. See, I'm initiative-led, and recently, aside from my official digital marketing responsibilities, I conceptualized and developed the K-Care app for K's Wellness Center, a health facility which focuses on chronic diseases with an integrative and functional medicine approach. This app will help better manage our clients. These are patients with chronic diseases, but from low-income households. And this earned me a distinction from Zindua School during our product management course. This I submitted as an end of course project. Therefore, I am confident that Product MBO will help evolve me from building solutions that work into building products that scale, endure, and truly serve users. Eugene Bahati is my name. Looking forward. Moral of the story, Zindua School is tried and tested. If you're out there and thinking of venturing into product management, but you just need a sense of direction, we're aware there is YouTube, there's books and all that. I tried it, I didn't get anywhere. But with Zindua School, honestly speaking, the sense of direction I really much needed, mentorship and handholding, I would highly recommend this to all and sundry. Thank you. Eugene Bahati is my name.
Thank you so much,
thank
man.
you.
Go ahead,
Thank
Domi.
you so much. Yeah, thank you so much, Eugene. That's one of our students. So we usually also have a graduation where we invite PMs from Kenya. We also run a community called Product Managers Kenya. We're a big community, about 10,000 PMs. So, and that is that day you can be able to showcase your project. You never know, your next opportunity will come from people in the room. They're able to vet you, look at your solution, give you feedback. You get to network with everyone from big tech to small companies. So it's a very good group that we come. We meet every quarter. but also we have sister companies or sister communities that we work with, UX design, Google devs, guys will build anything on Android, it could be Flutter. So we have a very big community, data scientists. Yeah, so we will yeah, so it's definitely something you should sign up. So let me share the link that's been asked for the PM group. Just give me a sec. But yeah, we're very vibrant community. So our first group is full already, but I'll share with you our group two. But don't worry, the engagement is usually more or less the same as we have, people who, we share the same kind of discussions in and out. So let me post it in the chat for you, Barbara. Yeah, so I've posted it there. We're happy to take any questions. If anyone has a question, kindly share these questions now before we wrap up. I know we're a bit 5 minutes out of time, so kindly, if anyone has a question, feel free to raise your hand and mute yourself and ask. Yeah. Anyone? Anyone? If not, Grace, I'll hand it back to you to just wrap this up, and then we can go.
Someone DM'd me on WhatsApp. They were asking whether this was recorded. I think it was. Maybe Grace, you
Yes.
could tell them where they can get the recording. Yeah.
All right. If they had RSVP'd for this, I will send a blast afterwards with a link to the recording. So I hope I'll come register on Luma. Yeah, but other than that, thank you guys for tuning in, and thank you Thaya and Dominic for taking us through the session. It has been amazing having you guys join from the start to the very end. Looking forward to have you all join our incoming product management program. It's starting on the 30th of this month. So ensure that you lock in your spot as soon as possible. To reserve your spot, you just have to pay 3,000 Kenyan shillings, which serves as your deposit, and then pay the balance of the program. The program is actually 25,000 in total, and then you get to pay your balance based on the number of installments that make sense for you. I shared the link. I'm also going to share it as a blast on email. So feel free to register. If you have any questions, feel free to respond to the email that I will send. That's it from us. Have a good night.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you. Bye to everyone. Bye.
Bye.